The Dawn Keeper was not a warship. She was old, slow, and held together by patches and prayers. Her hull showed the marks of 20 years in deep space. Rust-colored stains spread across her belly where the cooling systems leaked. Her engines made sounds that no engineer wanted to hear, but she flew. She always flew. Captain stood on the bridge and watched the stars through the cracked viewport. She was 43 years old with short black hair and tired eyes. Her uniform was clean but worn at the elbows. She had been a cargo captain for 15 years, moving supplies between colonies that the big companies did not care about. It was honest work, quiet work. She liked it that way. "Captain, we have a problem." Turned to look at her first officer. Was a tall man with broad shoulders and a calm face. Nothing ever seemed to shake him, but right now his voice carried a weight that made stomach tighten. "What kind of problem?" she asked. Pointed at the main screen. Sensors picked up ships, many ships. They just came out of fold space about 200,000 kilometers ahead. Walked to the screen and looked at the readings. Her heart dropped. The signature was unmistakable. Warships. At least 12 of them arranged in a perfect attack formation. Their hulls were smooth and black, shaped like curved blades. Each one was 5 times the size of the Dawn Keeper. "How did they get here?" asked. "This sector was supposed to be clear." "I do not know," said, "but they are between us and Haven Colony." Haven Colony. The thought hit like a punch to the chest. She turned and looked at the cargo bay monitors. 400 people were down there, families, children, old people who could barely walk. They had fled from the border worlds when the Empire started its expansion. The Dawn Keeper was supposed to take them to safety. That was the only job that mattered. Said to her pilot, "Can we go around them?" Was young, maybe 25, with quick hands and quicker eyes. She studied her controls and shook her head. "No, Captain, they have spread out too wide. If we try to go around, they will catch us. Our engines are too slow." "What about going back?" "Same problem. They are faster than us in every direction." Closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She had known this might happen when she agreed to carry refugees. The Empire did not like humans. They saw them as a young species, too loud and too stubborn. Humans had only been in space for 200 years. They had ruled their part of the galaxy for 10,000. They did not want competition. "Captain," said from the engineering station, "I am getting a transmission. They want to talk." Was the oldest member of the crew. His hair was gray and his hands were rough from years of fixing machines. He had served on starships since before was born. He looked at her now with eyes that had seen too much. "Put it through," said. The main screen flickered. A face appeared. It was not human. The skin was pale blue and smooth with no nose or ears. The eyes were large and completely black like pools of oil. When it spoke, the mouth barely moved. "Human vessel, I am Admiral of the Third Fleet. You have entered restricted space. You are carrying illegal passengers. You will surrender immediately." Stepped forward. "Admiral, these people are refugees. They are not soldiers. They are families running from war. Let us pass and we will leave your space." The Admiral's black eyes showed no emotion. "You have 20 seconds to power down your engines and prepare for boarding. If you do not comply, you will be destroyed." "Admiral, please. There are children on this ship. 400 innocent people who just want to live in peace." 15 seconds. Looked at her crew, stood straight, his jaw tight. Hands were shaking above her controls, stared at the screen with hatred in his old eyes. They all knew what surrender meant. They did not take prisoners. They took examples. 10 seconds. The captain thought about her passengers. She thought about the little girl she had seen in the cargo bay that morning, playing with a torn stuffed animal. She thought about the old man who had thanked her with tears in his eyes just for giving him a blanket. She thought about all the promises she had made. 5 seconds. Made her choice. She said quietly, "Full power to engines. Set course directly at the flagship." The pilot's eyes went wide. "Captain, do it now." Straining took over. Her fingers moved across the controls. The Dawn Keeper groaned as her old engines fired at maximum power. The ship jumped forward, not away from the fleet, but straight at them. Admiral's face showed the first crack of confusion. "What are you doing?" "You gave us 20 seconds, said. We are using them our way." The transmission cut off. On the screen, the ship started to move. They had not expected this. No sane captain would charge at a fleet with an unarmed cargo vessel. It was suicide. It was madness. It was exactly what was counting on. "Get down to the cargo bay," she ordered. "Tell everyone to strap in and hold on to something solid. Tell them we are going to make it. Make them believe it." Nodded and ran for the door. He did not question her. He never did. "I need everything you can give me. Pull power from life support, from lights, from everything that is not engines or shields." The old engineer was already moving. "I was young once too, Captain. I remember what crazy looks like." "How long until we reach the flagship?" The pilot checked her readings. "At this speed, 4 minutes, maybe less." 4 minutes. Watched the ships grow larger on the screen. They were beautiful in a terrible way. Perfect killing machines built by a species that had been making war for longer than humans had existed. The Dawn Keeper was a bug flying toward giants. But bugs could bite. The first warning shots streaked past the viewport. Bright green energy bolts that could cut through metal like paper. They were trying to scare her, trying to make her stop. Did not flinch. "Maintain course," she said. "They are targeting us," reported. "Multiple lock warnings." "Maintain course." Another volley of shots. These ones were closer. The ship shook as one grazed the outer hull. Alarms started screaming. Red lights flashed across the bridge. "Hull breach on deck 7, called out. "Sealing it now." "Maintain course." The flagship filled the screen now. It was massive, a black mountain of metal and death. Could see weapon ports opening along its side. She could see smaller ships moving to intercept. She could see her own reflection in the dark viewport, a tired woman with fire in her eyes. "Captain," said, her voice barely a whisper, "if we hit them at this speed, we all die." "I know," said, "but we are not going to hit them." She put her hand on shoulder and squeezed gently. "Trust me. When I give the word, you are going to do something impossible, and 400 people are going to live because of it." Looked up at her captain. She saw something there that she had never seen before. Not hope, not fear, something older and fiercer than both. "Yes, Captain," she said. The Dawn Keeper screamed toward the flagship. The distance closed. 200,000 kilometers became 100. 100 became 50. They fired again and again, but they were confused. They had never seen a prey run toward the predator. And in that confusion saw her chance. The bridge of the Dawn Keeper was chaos. Alarms screamed from every station. Red warning lights painted everything in the color of blood. Smoke drifted from a panel that had exploded near the back wall. But through it all, Captain stood perfectly still, her eyes fixed on the flagship growing larger with every second. 30,000 kilometers, reported. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled above the controls. 25,000. Hold course. The ships were firing constantly now. Green energy bolts streaked past the viewport like angry stars. Most of them missed. The Dawn Keeper was small and moving fast, harder to hit than the expected. But some shots found their mark. Each impact shook the ship like a giant fist punching a tin can. In the cargo bay below, moved through the crowd of refugees. 400 people packed into a space meant for cargo containers. They sat on the floor, on boxes, on anything they could find. Mothers held their children close. Old men prayed to gods from Earth that most humans had forgotten. Young people tried to look brave and failed. "Everyone stay down," called out. "Hold on to something and do not let go." A little girl tugged at his sleeve. She could not have been more than 6 years old. Her face was dirty and her clothes were torn, but her eyes were bright with questions. "Are we going to die?" she asked. Knelt down to look at her. He thought about lying. He thought about telling her that everything would be fine, that the captain had a plan, that help was coming. But children always knew when adults were lying. "I do not know," he said honestly, "but I know that our captain is the bravest person I have ever met. She will do everything she can to save us." The little girl nodded slowly. "My mother was brave too. The bad aliens took her." Felt something break inside his chest. He had seen too many stories like this one. Too many families torn apart by a war they never asked for. "What is your name?" he asked. "I need you to do something very important. Can you be brave for me?" The girl straightened her small shoulders. "I can try." "Good, I need you to sit with those people over there." He pointed to a group of elderly passengers. "They are scared. If they see a brave girl like you staying calm, it will help them feel better. Can you do that?" Looked at the old people. Then she looked back at and nodded. Without another word, she walked over and sat down next to an old woman with white hair. She took the woman's wrinkled hand in her small one. Watched her go. Then he turned and ran back toward the bridge. On the main deck was fighting to keep the ship alive. His engineering station was a mess of flashing warnings and failing systems. Coolant was leaking somewhere in the engine room. The power grid was overloaded. The shields were down to 40% and dropping. "Captain, I do not know how much more she can take," the old engineer said. "She will take enough," replied. "She has to." 20,000 kilometers, called out. "We are entering their close defense zone." The flagship started launching smaller craft. Fighters, sleek and fast, peeling away from the mothership like wasps from a nest. They formed into groups and turned toward the Dawn Keeper. "Fighters incoming," reported. "Count of 16, no 20, they keep coming." Watched them approach on the tactical display. Each one of those fighters carried enough weapons to destroy her ship 10 times over, but they would not fire. Not yet. They were too close to their own flagship. If they missed, they might hit their own people. That was the gamble. That was always the gamble. "How is the power transfer coming?" The engineer wiped sweat from his forehead. "Almost done. I have pulled everything from non-essential systems. Lights are running at 10%. Life support is on minimum. We have about 2 minutes of breathable air left in this configuration." "That is enough." "Enough for what?" Did not answer. She was watching the flagship, calculating distances and angles in her head. They built their ships to be intimidating, massive and dark and covered in weapons. But all that size came with a price. They were slow to turn, slow to react. And their shields curved outward like a bubble. 15,000 kilometers. The fighters were closing fast. On the screen, could see them spreading out, trying to box in the Dawn Keeper. They would not shoot yet. They still expected her to surrender or change course. They could not believe that any captain would really ram their flagship. "Admiral is transmitting again," said. "He demands we stop immediately." "Ignore him. He says if we do not stop, he will destroy the refugee colony on Haven." His jaw tightened. It was a lie. It had to be a lie. They did not even know about Haven Colony, but the words planted a seed of doubt in her mind. What if she was wrong? What if her gamble killed not just everyone on this ship, but everyone on the planet below? "Captain's" voice was small. Closed her eyes for 1 second. She saw her mother's face. Her mother had been a soldier in the early days of human space travel, back when Earth first made contact with alien species. She had told stories about those times, about how humans were small and weak compared to the older races, about how everyone expected them to fail. "The galaxy looked at us and saw prey," her mother had said, "but we showed them something different. We showed them that humans do not give up. We do not surrender. We do not stop fighting for our people." Opened her eyes. Maintain course, she said. 10,000 kilometers. The fighters were right on top of them now. Could see their shapes through the viewport, dark silhouettes against the stars. They were so close that she could make out individual weapon ports and sensor arrays. They are locking weapons, said. Multiple targeting signals. Maintain course. Captain, they are going to fire. They will not. How do you know? Pointed at the screen. Look at their formation. They are between us and the flagship. If they fire and miss, they hit their own command ship. If they fire and we dodge, same problem. They are waiting for orders from Admiral and he does not know what to do. It was true. The fighters were holding position, matching speed with the Dawn Keeper but not attacking. They were like wolves that had cornered a rabbit, only to find that the rabbit would not stop running. 5,000 kilometers. The flagship filled the entire viewport now, could see every detail of its black hull, the weapon ports, the sensor dishes, the massive engines at the rear, and there, at the center, the shield generator that created the energy bubble protecting the whole ship. Transfer all power to front shields, everything we have. That will leave us blind on sensors. Do it. The engineer's hands flew across his station. Lights dimmed throughout the ship. Screens flickered and died. For a moment, the Dawn Keeper was running on nothing but engines and hope. 3,000 kilometers. Listen carefully, said. When I give the word, I need you to cut engines completely and fire port thrusters at maximum for exactly 2 seconds. Then roll the ship 45 degrees starboard and fire the main engines again. The pilot blinked. Captain, at this speed, that maneuver will. I know what it will do. Can you do it? His face was pale. Her hands were shaking worse than before, but she nodded. Good, wait for my signal. 1,000 kilometers. The fighters behind them were screaming warnings on all frequencies. The flagship was powering up its main weapons. Somewhere on that massive ship, Admiral was probably shouting at his officers, demanding to know why a tiny cargo vessel was still coming. 500 kilometers. Leaned forward. She could see the shield bubble now, a faint shimmer of energy surrounding the flagship. It was designed to stop weapons fire, missiles, even small ships trying to ram, but it had one weakness. The shield pushed outward, like water from a hose. Anything that touched it would be deflected, thrown to the side by the force of the energy field. 300 kilometers. Get ready. 200 kilometers. Steady. 100 kilometers. Watched the shield bubble approaching. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest. Everything depended on the next few seconds. 50 kilometers. Now. Moved. Her hands danced across the controls with speed she did not know she had. The engines cut. The ship lurched. Port thrusters fired, pushing the Dawn Keeper to the side just as it hit the edge of the shield bubble. The impact was like nothing had ever felt. The ship spun wildly, caught in the deflection wave of the shields. Metal screamed. People screamed. The stars outside the viewport became a blur of light and darkness. But was already moving. She rolled the ship, fighting against the spin, using the shield's own energy to push them in a new direction. The main engines fired. The Dawn Keeper shot forward, not at the flagship anymore, but past it. They were slingshotting around the ship, using its own shields as a catapult toward the planet below. And they could not fire. Their own flagship was in the way. Let out a breath she did not know she was holding. You beautiful genius. The pilot laughed. It was a wild sound, half terror and half joy. Do not thank me yet, Captain. We still have to land this thing. The Dawn Keeper tumbled through space like a leaf in a storm. Warning lights flashed across every surface. The hull groaned with sounds that no ship should make. Somewhere in the lower decks, a fire had started and automatic systems were fighting to contain it. Captain pulled herself up from the floor where the impact had thrown her. Blood ran down her forehead from a cut she did not remember getting. The bridge was a disaster. Screens were cracked. Consoles sparked with exposed wiring. But they were alive. They were still flying. "Report," she called out, her voice rough. Was still at her station, her hands locked on the controls. Her face was pale as paper, but her eyes were sharp. "We are past the flagship. Current trajectory takes us toward Haven Colony. Speed is, Captain, we are going very fast." "How fast?" "Fast enough that stopping is going to be a problem." Crawled out from under his engineering console. The old man had a burn on his arm, but he ignored it. "Engines are damaged. We lost the port thruster completely. Starboard is running at maybe 60%. Can we slow down?" "We can try, but at this speed with these engines, we will need a lot of distance to stop." Looked at the main screen. The planet was growing larger by the second. Haven Colony was down there, a small settlement of humans who had fled to this remote world seeking peace. They had farms and schools and hospitals. They had lives that they had built from nothing. And the Dawn Keeper was about to crash into their world like a meteor. "How long until we hit atmosphere?" she asked. Checked her readings. 6 minutes, maybe 7. 6 minutes to figure out how to land a damaged ship carrying 400 people. 6 minutes to turn a disaster into a miracle. "Contact the colony," ordered. "Tell them we are coming in hot. They need to clear the landing zone and prepare for emergency rescue." Shook his head. "Communications are down. The shield impact fried our transmitter." "Then fix it." "Captain, I am one man with burned hands and broken tools." "Then fix it with burned hands and broken tools. That is what you do." The old engineer stared at her for a moment. Then something like a smile crossed his weathered face. "Yes, Captain." He grabbed a toolkit and disappeared into a maintenance hatch. Watched him go, then turned back to the viewport. The fleet was behind them now, but she could see them on the tactical display. They were regrouping, turning to pursue. The fighters were faster than the Dawn Keeper. They would catch up before the ship reached the surface. But maybe that was the point. "Can you keep us unstable?" The pilot looked confused. "What do you mean?" "Our flight path. Can you make it unpredictable? Random movements, course changes, anything to make us hard to target." "I can try, but every maneuver costs us speed. The more I dodge, the longer we take to reach the planet." "That is fine. We need time anyway." Nodded and started working her controls. The ship lurched as she made small adjustments, tiny movements that would look like a damaged vessel struggling to fly straight. And in a way, that was exactly what they were. In the cargo bay was organizing the refugees. The impact had thrown people against walls and cargo containers. There were injuries everywhere. Broken bones, cuts, bruises. An old woman was unconscious near the back. A young man had a piece of metal stuck in his leg. "Everyone stay calm," shouted over the noise of crying children and groaning metal. "We are going to land soon. I need anyone with medical training to help the injured." A woman stepped forward. She was middle-aged with gray streaks in her black hair. "I was a nurse back on Earth, before everything happened." "Good, take charge of the wounded. Do what you can." More people came forward. A retired doctor, a young man who had studied emergency medicine, a teenage girl who said she knew first aid. They formed into groups and started moving through the crowd, checking on the hurt, calming the scared. Watched them work and felt something warm in his chest. These people had lost everything. Their homes, their families, their old lives, but they still helped each other. They still cared. That was what made humans different. That was what they would never understand. Little appeared at his side. Her face was dirty and there was a small cut on her cheek, but she stood straight and her eyes were clear. "I helped the old lady," she said. "I held her hand while the nurse looked at her." "That was very brave of you." Is the captain going to save us? Looked up at the ceiling as if he could see through it to the bridge above. She is going to try, and when Captain tries something, she usually does it. Back on the bridge, his voice crackled through the internal speakers. Captain, I have the transmitter working, sort of. We can send, but we cannot receive. One-way communication only. That is enough. Open a channel to Haven Colony. There was a moment of static, then spoke again. Channel open. Took a breath. Haven Colony, this is the cargo vessel Dawn Keeper. We are carrying 400 refugees and coming in for emergency landing. Our ship is damaged and we cannot slow down to normal approach speed. Clear landing zone Alpha and prepare for crash rescue. We will try to put down as close to the colony as we can. If we do not make it, tell Earth that we tried. She gestured for to close the channel. There was nothing more to say. Captain, fighters are closing, reported. They will be in weapons range in 3 minutes. Studied the tactical display. 12 fighters were pursuing them, arranged in a wide formation. They were being careful, staying spread out so the Dawn Keeper could not repeat the slingshot trick. Smart. They had learned from their mistake. But maybe they had not learned enough. When the fighters get close, I want you to cut engines again. What? Let them catch up. Let them think we are surrendering. Captain, they will destroy us. No, they want us alive. Admiral lost face when we escaped his flagship. He needs to capture us to restore his honor. If we surrender, they will try to board. His eyes widened as she understood. And if they try to board? They have to match our speed and get close, very close. And then we run again. Smiled grimly, and then we run again. The fighters closed the distance. 1 minute. 30 seconds. Watched them approach, her heart pounding but her face calm. This was the gamble. If she was wrong about psychology, if Admiral wanted revenge more than honor, they would all die in the next few moments. The lead fighter opened a communication channel. A voice, cold and angry, filled the bridge. Human vessel, you will power down immediately. Prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in immediate destruction. Cut engines, said quietly. Obeyed. The ship went silent as the main drive shut down. They were still moving, still falling toward the planet, but now they were coasting on momentum alone. The fighters surrounded them. 12 ships formed a cage of death around the Dawn Keeper. Could see them through the viewport, sleek and black and terrible. Their weapons were powered up, ready to fire at the slightest movement. A larger ship appeared behind the fighters. A boarding vessel, square and ugly, with docking clamps extended like claws. It moved toward the Dawn Keeper's main airlock. How are the engines? Asked over the internal channel. Ready, Captain, whispered back. Ready. The boarding vessel got closer. 20 meters, 10 meters, 5 meters. Could see soldiers through its windows, ready to storm onto her ship and take her people. Now, she said. Everything happened at once. The engines roared back to life, threw the ship into a wild spin, breaking away from the fighter formation. The Dawn Keeper dove toward the planet, trading altitude for speed. The fighters scattered, surprised by the sudden movement. And because they were so close, trying to board rather than destroy, they could not fire without hitting each other. Watched the chaos unfold on the tactical display. 2 fighters nearly collided trying to turn. Another one fired and hit it by accident. The boarding vessel was left behind, too slow and heavy to follow. We are clear, shouted triumph in her voice, but was looking at the planet rushing up to meet them. Can you level us out? The pilot checked her controls. Her face went pale. Captain, we are going too fast. The atmosphere is going to hit us like a wall. Can we survive it? Did not answer. She did not need to. The Dawn Keeper hit the upper atmosphere of Haven Colony. Fire wrapped around the hull. The ship shook so hard they could not see straight. Metal screamed. People screamed. For a long, terrible moment, it felt like the whole universe was trying to tear them apart. And then they were through, burning, damaged, falling, but through. Below them, the green and brown surface of Haven Colony spread out like a promise. "Find us somewhere to land," said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Anywhere, just get us down." His hands moved across her controls. Her eyes scanned the terrain below. "There," she said, "open field near the colony. It is going to be rough." "Rough is fine. Rough means we are alive." The ground rushed up to meet them. The Dawn Keeper hit the ground like a wounded bird. The landing was not graceful. It was not controlled. It was a controlled crash, which was the best they could hope for. The ship struck the field at a shallow angle, belly first. Dirt and rocks sprayed into the air like a brown fountain. The hull scraped against the ground with a sound that hurt to hear. Metal bent and tore. Windows shattered. For what felt like forever, the ship slid across the field, digging a deep scar into the earth of Haven Colony. And then finally it stopped. Silence. Captain opened her eyes. She was on the floor of the bridge, tangled in debris. Her whole body ached. Her ears were ringing. For a moment she could not remember where she was or what had happened. Then it all came back. She pushed herself up, ignoring the pain in her ribs. The bridge was destroyed. Every screen was dark. Sparks fell from the ceiling like tiny stars. Smoke drifted through the air, thick enough to make her cough. A groan came from the pilot station. Was slumped over her controls, blood running from a wound on her scalp. But she was moving. She was alive. "I am here, Captain," she whispered. I think we made it." "We made it," crawled over to her and helped her sit up. "You did it. You landed us." "Crashed us." "Same thing under the circumstances." A sound came from the engineering hatch. Pulled himself through, his uniform torn and his face covered in soot. But his eyes were bright and his smile was genuine. "Captain, that was the worst landing I have ever been part of, and I have been part of some bad ones. Is everyone alive? Let me check the cargo bay." Disappeared into the ship. Stayed with, making sure the pilot was stable. The young woman had hit her head hard, but she seemed alert. She could move her hands and feet. Nothing was broken. Minutes passed. Then's voice came over the internal speakers, crackling with static. "Captain, cargo bay report. We have injuries, many injuries, but I count 400 people breathing. We did not lose anyone." Felt tears sting her eyes. She blinked them away. There was no time for tears, not yet. "Get everyone out of the ship. The hull could collapse. Move them away from the wreckage and set up a triage area. Anyone who can walk helps those who cannot." "Understood." Help to her feet. Together, they made their way through the ruined ship. Every corridor was damaged. Some passages were completely blocked by debris. They had to climb over bent metal and squeeze through gaps that were barely wide enough for a person. When they reached the main cargo bay door, they found already organizing the evacuation. The big man had a cut on his face and one arm hung at an awkward angle, probably broken. But he was directing people with calm authority, making sure the elderly and injured were carried out first. "Captain," he said when he saw her, "good to see you alive." "Good to be alive, status." "We are moving. The colonists saw us crash. They are sending vehicles to help." Looked out through the torn hull of her ship. The field was flat and green, surrounded by low hills covered in alien trees. In the distance, she could see the buildings of Haven Colony. Small structures, simple but sturdy, a place where people had come to build new lives. Vehicles were approaching. Old trucks and farm equipment, anything the colonists could find. They drove across the field toward the wreckage, kicking up clouds of dust behind them. "Go with the wounded. Make sure they get proper medical care." The pilot nodded and limped toward the evacuation area. Watched her go, then turned too. "How much time do we have?" Before they arrive, looked at the sky. It was blue and clear, peaceful in a way that felt wrong. Their ships took damage when we escaped, but they will repair quickly. I would guess maybe 2 hours, 3 at most. 2 hours. 2 hours to prepare 400 people for what was coming. The colony has shelters, said. Old mining tunnels, I think. We need to get everyone underground. And then what? And then we hold. Stared at her. His broken arm hung at his side, but his good hand clenched into a fist. Captain, we have no weapons, no soldiers. We are refugees and colonists against a war fleet. I know. We cannot win a fight. I know that too. Put her hand on his shoulder. But we do not need to win, we just need to survive long enough for help to arrive. What help? We are in the middle of nowhere. Earth does not even know we are here. Smiled grimly. They will know, the distress signal I sent before we crashed. It went out on every frequency. Military, civilian, everything. Every ship within 10 light years heard it. And humans, we do not leave our own behind. The colonists arrived with their vehicles. An older man jumped out of the lead truck and ran toward. He was tall and weathered, with the look of someone who had spent years working under alien suns. Captain, I am Jin, leader of the Colony Council. We saw your ship come down. What happened up there? Told him everything. The fleet, the ultimatum, the charge at the flagship. By the time she finished, Jin's face had gone from confused to shocked to something that looked almost like admiration. You charged a flagship, he said slowly, with a cargo ship. It seemed like the best option at the time. Jin laughed. It was a hard sound without much humor. They are going to be very angry. They are going to come here looking for us, for all of us. Gestured at the refugees streaming out of the crashed ship. I need to get these people underground, and I need everyone in the colony to go with them. The mining tunnels, yes, they are deep enough to shield from orbital bombardment. We have stored supplies down there for emergencies. Jin paused. But if we hide underground, they will just wait us out. Or worse, they will level the colony from orbit. They will not bombard us. I know Admiral. He wants me alive. He wants to make an example of the human who humiliated him in front of his fleet. So they will send troops. Yes. Can we stop them? Looked around. She saw farmers and teachers and doctors. She saw old people and children. She saw families who had already lost everything once and were about to lose it again. We can slow them down, she said. We can make them work for every meter, and we can hope that help arrives before they break through. Jin nodded slowly. Then he turned and started shouting orders to his people. Within minutes, the evacuation was fully. Trucks carried the wounded toward the colony. Healthy refugees walked in groups, helping each other along the dirt roads. The colonists who remained behind started gathering anything that could be used as a weapon or barricade. Organized a defense force. It was not much. Maybe 30 people who had military experience or at least knew how to fire a weapon. They had hunting rifles and mining tools and improvised explosives made from farming chemicals. Against soldiers in battle armor, it was barely enough to slow them down. But did not complain. He set up positions along the main approaches to the tunnels. He created fallback points and escape routes. He trained the volunteers on basic tactics. He did everything a soldier should do, with one broken arm and no real hope of victory. Worked alongside him. She helped carry supplies into the tunnels. She organized the civilians in the underground shelters. She made sure that everyone had water and food and a safe place to hide. And she watched the sky. An hour passed, then another. The blue sky remained empty but knew it would not last. Somewhere up there the fleet was gathering. Admiral was planning his revenge. Found her standing at the entrance to the main tunnel, looking up at the clouds. Communications are working again, the old engineer said. Sort of. I rigged a receiver from parts of the ship. It is weak, but we can hear incoming transmissions now. Anything from Earth, From any human ships. Shook his head. Static mostly. There is one signal, very faint, could be human, could be, hard to tell. Felt her heart sink. 2 hours had passed. If help was coming, it should be close by now. Unless no one had heard her signal, unless they were truly alone. Then's face changed. He put his hand to his ear, pressing the small receiver closer. "Captain, I think someone is responding." He handed her the receiver, pressed it to her ear. Through the static she heard a voice. Human, male, speaking in clear military terms. "Received your signal, Dawn Keeper. This is Commander Park of the UNSS Resolution. We are entering the system now. Hold your position. Help is coming. Repeat, help is coming." Closed her eyes. For the first time since the hat appeared, she felt something other than fear and determination. She felt hope. "How long until they arrive?" she asked. "Based on the signal strength, 30 minutes, maybe 40. "Then we hold for 40 minutes. As if in answer, the first appeared in the sky above Haven Colony. They came down like dark angels. 5 of them, each carrying 30 soldiers in full battle armor. They landed in a half-circle around Haven Colony, their engines burning the grass and sending clouds of smoke into the air. Captain watched from the tunnel entrance. Beside her, checked his hunting rifle for the 3rd time. It was a farmer's weapon meant for scaring away animals. Against armor, it would do almost nothing. 30 minutes, said quietly. "We just need 30 minutes. "We will give you 30 minutes, replied. His voice was calm, but his eyes told a different story. The doors opened. Soldiers poured out, moving in perfect formation. They were tall and thin, wearing black armor that covered them from head to toe. Their weapons were long and sleek, designed to kill at any range. Each one was a professional killer with thousands of years of military tradition behind them. The human defenders had farming tools and desperation. "First line, get ready," called out to his volunteers. They were hidden behind barricades made of farming equipment and crashed ship parts. 20 men and women with hunting rifles and homemade explosives. They looked terrified, but they did not run. They advanced. They moved slowly, carefully, scanning for threats. They expected resistance. They had learned from the Dawn Keeper that humans did not surrender easily. When the first line of soldiers reached the outer barricades, gave the order. "Fire!" The volunteers opened up with everything they had. Rifles cracked. Explosives went off in bright flashes of fire and noise. For a moment, the advance stopped. 2 soldiers went down, their armor cracked by lucky shots or caught in blast zones. But only for a moment. The returned fire with terrible precision. Their weapons did not make loud sounds. They made soft hissing noises, followed by screams. 3 volunteers fell in the first volley, 2 more in the second. "Fall back to second line," shouted. "Everyone move now." The survivors retreated, firing as they went. They followed, stepping over their fallen comrades without looking down. They did not care about losses. They cared about victory. In the tunnels below, organized the refugees. 400 people plus the colonists were packed into the underground chambers. The air was thick and hot. Children cried. Old people prayed. Mothers held their families close and tried to pretend everything would be fine. "Keep moving deeper," told them. "Get as far from the entrance as you can." Little appeared at her side. The girl had stayed near throughout the evacuation, following her like a shadow. Her face was dirty and her clothes were torn, but her eyes were bright. "Are the bad aliens coming?" she asked. "Yes, but good people are coming too. We just have to wait a little longer." "I am not scared." Looked at the little girl, 6 years old. She had lost her mother to these same aliens. She should be crying, hiding, breaking down. Instead, she stood straight and met's eyes without flinching. "I know you are not," said. "You are the bravest person on this planet." The sounds of battle grew closer. Explosions echoed down the tunnel. His voice came over the radio, broken by static. Pushed back to tunnel entrance, lost half our people, cannot hold much longer. Grabbed a piece of metal pipe from the ground. It was not a weapon. It was barely a tool, but it was all she had. Stay with the civilians, keep them calm. The old engineer nodded. Where are you going? To help. Captain, you are not a soldier. I know, but I am the one who brought these people here. I am not going to hide while others die for my decisions. She ran toward the tunnel entrance. The sounds of fighting grew louder. She could smell smoke and blood and burned ozone from energy weapons. When she reached the surface, she saw chaos. The barricades were destroyed. Bodies lay everywhere, human and mixed together. Was behind a pile of debris, firing his rifle at shapes moving through the smoke. 3 other volunteers were with him. That was all that remained of their defense force. Captain, get back inside, shouted when he saw her. How much time? I do not know, 5 minutes 10, they keep coming. Looked at the sky, it was still empty. Where was the resolution, where was help? The pushed forward. A squad of soldiers moved around the flank trying to reach the tunnel entrance. Turned to engage them, but there were too many. They were surrounded. Then one of them stepped forward. He was different from the others, taller, with gold markings on his armor. His helmet was off, revealing the pale blue face and black eyes that recognized. Admiral. Human captain, the admiral called out. His voice was cold and precise. Your defense is over. Your people will be taken. Your colony will be destroyed. And you will watch it all happen before you die. Stepped out from behind the debris. She held her metal pipe at her side. It felt ridiculous. A woman with a piece of scrap metal against an alien admiral backed by 100 soldiers. But she did not lower it. You gave us 20 seconds to surrender, she said. We chose to fight instead. We will keep fighting until there is nothing left to fight with. His black eyes showed something that might have been curiosity. Why? You cannot win. You could have surrendered hours ago and saved yourselves much pain. Because we are human, we do not surrender our own. We do not abandon our families. We do not stop fighting for the people we love, lifted the pipe. You can kill us all, but you will never make us give up. The admiral stared at her for a long moment. Then he raised his weapon. Very well, die with your pride, human. A new sound filled the air, deep and powerful like thunder that never stopped. Everyone looked up. Ships were descending through the clouds. Human ships. A full battle group led by a massive carrier with UNSS Resolution painted on its hull. Fighters screamed overhead, their weapons already firing at the heavy transports landed around the colony, deploying soldiers in powered armor. In seconds, the situation changed completely. The who had been advancing on the tunnels suddenly found themselves surrounded by human marines. The that had brought them here were burning, hit by precision strikes from above. Admiral stood frozen, his weapon still raised toward, but he did not fire. His black eyes moved across the battlefield, watching his fleet crumble around him. A human marine approached, weapon trained on the admiral. Drop your weapon. You are under arrest for war crimes against civilian populations. Lowered his weapon. His soldiers followed his lead, surrendering one by one. The battle was over almost before it truly began. Commander Park of the Resolution appeared moments later. He was a young man with sharp eyes and the confident walk of someone who had won many battles. He saluted with obvious respect. Captain, we received your distress signal when we heard what you did to escape that fleet. He shook his head in disbelief. You rammed a flagship with a cargo ship. I did not ram it. I used its shields as a slingshot. Park laughed. Even better. The entire sector is talking about it. A single unarmed ship, an entire fleet. 400 refugees saved by sheer human stubbornness. He paused. You know what the Galactic Council is calling it? What? The day humans said no. looked around at the battlefield, at the wounded being treated, at the refugees emerging from the tunnels, crying and laughing and hugging each other, at sitting against a wall with his broken arm finally being tended to, at Little running toward her with arms open wide. She caught the girl and held her close, 6 years old and braver than anyone had ever met. "We did it," whispered. "We won." "We survived," corrected gently. "Sometimes that is the same thing." Admiral was led away in restraints. As he passed, he stopped and looked at her with those cold black eyes. "This changes nothing," he said. "The Empire will remember this insult. There will be consequences." Met his gaze without flinching. "Good, let them remember. Let the whole galaxy remember. Humans do not surrender. We do not bow. We do not break." She smiled, and there was iron in it. "Come back with another fleet. Come back with 1,000 fleets. The answer will always be the same." Said nothing. He was led away to a holding cell on the Resolution. In the weeks that followed, the story spread across known space. A cargo captain who charged a flagship, a handful of refugees who held off an army, a species that chose certain death over surrender. The galactic powers took notice. The Empire, for the first time in 10,000 years, hesitated before expanding. Other races looked at humanity with new eyes, not as children to be dismissed or conquered, but as something different, something dangerous, something that would never stop fighting for its own. Captain returned to Earth a hero, though she never thought of herself that way. She went back to flying cargo ships, carrying supplies to the colonies that nobody else cared about. The Dawn Keeper was rebuilt, stronger than before. And sometimes, late at night when the stars were bright outside her viewport, would think about those 20 seconds, the moment when everything could have ended, the choice she made to charge instead of surrender. She never regretted it, not once. Because that was what humans did. They faced the impossible and refused to accept it. They looked at death and chose to live. They stood together against the darkness, and they did not back down. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. That was why they would never fall.